My name is Terry Ellis. I'm an independent audio reviewer from the YouTube channel and website Pursuit of Perfect System. And Elite Audio UK have sponsored me to make this video for them, but they've had absolutely no input into the video content, and all the thoughts and opinions in this video are my own. Elite Audio UK asked me to look at 3 headphone products from the manufacturer Erzetich. These are products that they are exclusively offering to their customers here in the UK. The 3 products are the PHOBOS and MANIA headphones and the mighty Deimos Headphone amplifier. And this joint review has been really very interesting. Erzetich are new to me as a manufacturer, but they are not a new company. They have been in business for over a decade now, and it's actually quite an interesting time to be reviewing these products purely because there is now a V2021, a slightly newer, revised version that are available from pretty much now. Because of this, I'm going to talk more about the sound quality of the individual products and then actually talk about how they maybe synergize together, because that was the bit that was really interesting to me, looking at high-end headphones and a high-end headphone amplifier, all from the same manufacturer. What type of sound synergy would that create, especially when 2 of the headphones here are based around different driver technologies. But let's start with the Deimos, which is a £4,000 double mono Class A headphone amplifier that has some quirky styling and design choices, such as the big volume wheel, rustic LED volume indication, and the company's obvious trademark design, the reclaimed wood look that's across the headphones too. Taking a look inside the Deimos is seriously impressive, especially as I could not find any published specifications for power or other important factors like that. My best guesstimation for power is there is more than enough. On the rear are both single-ended and balanced inputs. There is a nice relay click when you adjust the volume, and interestingly, there appears to be small volume adjustments possible in between the LED indicators. So a higher degree of volume adjustment is possible that I found really useful. Now, because I am like a child with lots of new toys, I actually went straight into reviewing the Deimos with the PHOBOS, which are Erzetich's flagship, just short of £2,000 planar magnetic open back headphones. And looking at the new V2021 design, I really like the look of the new carbon headband, and I think being 10 grams lighter will make them appealing to more audiophiles. Although one thing I might miss is the size adjustment system. On the V2018 version I have here, there is a bolt type system that maybe looks a little medieval. However, I really liked it because you could adjust the fit and then lock the size in place. And as you can see, with me putting the PHOBOS on my head, these are really quite a large, at-home, serious listening set of headphones. Let's talk about the sound quality for the pairing of the PHOBOS and the Deimos. And straight away, I was impressed with the big, solid, engaging sound presentation. It really grabbed my attention. And I was really actively listening at first and obviously making notes in between. But interestingly, in between the very active listening and making notes, I found myself really sinking and relaxing and being pulled very much into the music that I was listening to, purely because I think it was communicating to me on the all-important emotional level. And part of this was definitely the planar smoothness and lightness of touch. I'm sure some of you will relate to that. With this pairing, I really appreciated the high resolution, detailed sound that doesn't sound atypical high resolution. There are details there in abundance, and some excellent deep musical layer subtleties becoming clear to appreciate, but the sound is not etched. Transients are smooth, possibly a touch too smooth at times, but that is me being really fussy. Interestingly, with the soundstage, sometimes I was getting some really impressive soundstage width, with sounds being perceived as coming from kind of in this kind of area. Bearing in mind the headphones are here, sound's coming from there, which is really very impressive. But I'd say the overall main bulk of the sound from the Phobos and Deimos is quite focused and direct, concentrated more in this area. And I would say the overall soundstage is what I would class as quite densely populated, with images being created that are big and solid and quite large in this soundstage space, which is quite a different type of presentation to headphones maybe like Sennheiser's HD800s or HD820s, or maybe even the Focal Utopias, because those headphones are trying to create, I think, more of a sense of space in this area here. But I think the word create is quite an interesting one, because to me personally, those headphones are creating it rather than it being actually organically presented. And these are quite important areas of distinction, but your mileage may vary in terms of how you interpret the sound presentation. And I think that leads me nicely onto my next thought about this pairing, and that is it works really well across various musical genres. And I was into classical music really quite early in this review, and I was impressed with how organized and graceful complex classical music was presented, with the Phobos Deimos really being able to swing or shift the dynamics when called for. And classical music was interesting to compare the high and low gain settings on the Deimos. For me, the low gain sounds smoother, more easygoing, more musical, and a little more tube-like. Not as romantic as tubes, but a little bit of it. Switching to high gain sounds more like powerful solid state amplifier setups, where there is more purpose, more separation, and more impact to individual crescendos or individual musical elements, but with the trade-off of losing some of the smoother organic qualities of the low gain setting. And the Deimos has so much power. Throughout this whole review, I didn't really get it above the halfway point, even on the low gain setting, even with high dynamic range recordings, the recordings that are mastered really very low. So to me, the Deimos had so much power available that I was able to happily use it in the low gain setting all the time. And moving on from classical to some modern music, I was really surprised by how well this pairing handled two completely contrasting music styles, such as Billie Eilish's new album and Scandroid instrumentals. What stood out to me was the very obvious difference with the sound stages. The Billie Eilish album sounded very intimate, very up close. With the headphones on, it sounded very near field. Quite impressively, switching to the Scandroid album, which is very open and more spacious with very specific details, that's exactly how the soundstage changed. So all of a sudden, with the Scandroid album, individual elements were popping out of space here, and it was the stark difference in the sound stages of these two albums that really impressed me, because it just showed me how deep into the music production this headphone setup was allowing me to hear or to go. And these albums also test bass very differently. Billie Eilish's album is right on the limits for bass quantity, and it can punish systems that either can't deliver or handle the bass, specifically of track 1. As I expected, the Phobos sounded maybe on their bass limit. You get that planar driver crackle when you push them too hard. But this was minor among some very impressive bass for being tight, agile and solid. But more important to me is the bass was rounded with really nice flow rather than a mechanical start-stop bass delivery, and I think that makes music much more fun and engaging to listen to. Overall, I have been massively satisfied with the bass from this pairing, because there is enough of it at a high enough quality to be wholly satisfying, and more than enough to warm the whole presentation. The treble delivery was really very interesting, because at first I maybe felt it was a little soft and maybe a little rolled off, and it possibly is at the extremes. But overall, the treble detail and treble clarity and treble quality have been massively impressive. And I particularly appreciated some fantastic higher frequency room ambience decays in the classical music that I listen to. Treble is delivered with no edginess, hardness or harshness at all. The vocal delivery is probably the star of the show here, but only by a slight margin, and I've been particularly impressed by how obviously different the character of each singer has been for all the different pieces of music that I've been listening to. One torture track I use for vocals is Television Girl by JS Ondara. And this can be a high frequency wail on some systems, but the composure and smoothness from the PHOBOS and Deimos showed how characterful and powerful this song is, with the vibrato vocal talent being a positive rather than causing pain. And some audiophiles might find the vocals maybe a little closed in compared to other headphone setups like your Sennheiser HD800s and HD820s, and maybe some other audiophiles will think that the lower registers, the gruffer parts of male vocals, are maybe missing a little bit of that kind of fullness bloom that some closed back headphones can give you. But I think in the main, most audiophiles will appreciate the very tonally saturated delivered vocals that never overstay their welcome anywhere in their delivery. And overall, this is a very impressive, very high quality headphone setup, headphone system that is very difficult to fault. Yes, you can highlight certain areas that maybe other products maybe do better or maybe accentuate better. But I feel like how these products are designed, how they're designed to sound, and the synergy that's designed between them is really very difficult to fault. And this was especially apparent to me when I started to consider or compare some other different components. And I have been using Chord's Hugo TT2 for the DAC, so I could plug the PHOBOS straight into it to compare the amplification with the Deimos. And the Chord Hugo TT2 is a very good and very well renowned headphone amplifier in its own right, but the difference in sound quality was night and day. Using the TT2 for everything, the sound was a little more present in the treble, a bit sharper and crisper. But to my surprise, the soundstage, the scale, the fullness of sound and bass presence and power just wasn't there. And that showed me very quickly the quality of the Deimos and how well these two products synergize. And this is obviously a very expensive headphone setup, especially when we take into account the cost of the DAC. And I feel like the DAC quality is definitely going to be important with products of this type of high quality and sound quality and resolution capability. And yeah, I take all of that into account, and I think about this is definitely one of the best sounding headphone setups that I've had the luxury and the pleasure to review so far. Moving on to the £1,199 Mania headphones that look very similar to the PHOBOS, and these also have a version 2021 out about now that have the same modern appeal. And as I mentioned, it's very interesting to see different driver technologies being used by the same manufacturer because they are a titanium dynamic driver semi-open design. The Mania have a big, bold and rich sound too. There is a really solid and impactful bass. Vocals are nicely tonally saturated and treble details are in the main smooth. Maybe too smooth and laid back for some, and you do notice this when you compare them to, say, the PHOBOS. The Mania can deliver a very wide and clear soundstage, and I'm thinking back to Pink Floyd, Another Brick in the Wall Part 2. They also deliver a very wide soundstage with, elements being very much outside of your head. That's very impressive. And I think if you only listen to this one song, you may think that the Mania are giving you maybe 85 to 90% of the sound quality of the PHOBOS for maybe 60% of the cost. But if you listen across a wider selection of music, you will notice there is actually quite a noticeable difference between the two headphones. That's quite easy to quantify. The PHOBOS are higher resolution headphones that sound like they are lower distortion from top to bottom. However, there are some benefits to the Mania that some audiophiles might prefer because the darker sound, and I'm sure the semi-open design, makes vocals sound a little more full-bodied and the bass seems a little more percussive punchy. But it's not nearly as rounded and flowing as from the PHOBOS, and it's more of that hard start-stop bass that's not quite as enjoyable to listen to. Although some vocals sounded particularly nice on the Mania, I'm thinking of Tracy Chapman. But across more varied music, you can hear maybe a little bit of muffling, I think again because of the Mania's darker sound, where the clarity of the PHOBOS on that same music really comes through without you even trying to hear it, it's just there. Now I'd say from that the PHOBOS lets you into the music more and shows you more of what the music is, more clearly giving you a better sense of the soundstage depth. And you do still get this from the Mania, but just not to the same degree. And the Mania are still very good headphones, still very enjoyable headphones to listen to. They also pull you very deeply into the music, but once you've been, I think, spoiled by the really high resolution sound of the PHOBOS, you do obviously miss it. You definitely miss an aspect of that when you sort of switch over and start listening to the Mania. And I did listen to them a lot and compared them a lot. And I would say if you're going to do that for yourself, don't make the mistake of doing it too quickly. Try and listen across quite a varied selection of music over a period of time, because I think that's when the differences really start to become clear. And a quick mention for the included cables. I really like them. I really like the stainless carbon detail, and you can mod these really quite easily because they use a pretty standard connector. And I think to close out this review and this video, I've got to say, I really like the Deimos headphone amplifier. What a thing that is. And I think the differences between the headphones, the PHOBOS and the Mania, well, it's a little bit like glasses, isn't it? You know, everyone's got their own preferences for comfort, heavy or light, and maybe sound quality being a bit more higher resolution and clear, or maybe being a little bit darker, smoother, and a bit more full-bodied. So it's great to have the options available, but it's in this situation where I'd always advise somebody, really, you want to have a listen to these for yourself. And in that instance, I would suggest you speak to the guys over at Elite Audio UK, because they can obviously arrange for you to go into store or maybe have a home demo. And I definitely think something to pay attention to here is if you're considering the PHOBOS headphones or the Mania headphones, probably for that matter, well then you probably owe it to yourself to have a listen to them off of the Deimos amplifier, particularly the PHOBOS, because I feel you could listen to the PHOBOS off a different headphone setup and never really truly hear what they can deliver when they're being powered and driven by the Deimos headphone amplifier. I think in a similar fashion, if you're looking at the Deimos headphone amplifier as like its really ultimate headphone amplifier, well then I think it would make sense to listen to them with the PHOBOS headphones, because that synergy works so well. And again, this is where it makes sense to speak to the guys over at Elite Audio UK, and they'll be able to help you with all of this. So I hope you've enjoyed this very long and very detailed 3-product kind of joint review. I hope you found it useful and helpful, and if you did and you'd like to see more, please hit the thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to the Elite Audio UK YouTube channel. If you'd like to see other, maybe more technical types of reviews, come on over and see me at the Pursuit of Perfect System YouTube channel, or maybe visit my website. Hope you've enjoyed this one. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.